Kada su roditelji Krisa farmera dobili posao profesora u američkoj školi u Saudijskoj Arabiji i preselili se u ovu zemlju iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država, on je imao samo 12 godina. Želeći da upoznaju nove zemlje i kulture, prešli su potom sa Krisom i njegovom sestrom u Italiju. Želja za putovanjima i avanturistički duh Krisovih roditelja potpuno su mu promenili život. Nekoliko godina je proveo i u Francuskoj, gde je završio komparativnu književnost na Američkom univerzitetu u Parizu. Živeo je po nekoliko godina i u drugim zemljama Zapadne Evrope, a onda ga je slučaj doveo u Beograd. Ovde živi već 10 godina, što je njegov najduži boravak u jednom gradu i jednoj zemlji u kontinuitetu. Christen Bradley Farmer, profesor književnosti po obrazovanju, bavi se pisanjem, uređivanjem i marketingom, a u novije vreme predsednik je međunarodne kompanije Match for Consulting, čiji je osnivač i vlasnik, a piše i kolumne u listu Politika. Njegova priča o Beogradu počinje na Bajloni pijaci na Dorćolu. Kada se doselio u Beograd, stanovao je na bulevaru Despota Stefana i ova pijaca bila je prvo mesto na koje je bio upućen.
This was sort of my first encounter with anything having to do with Serbia. When I first came over here, it was in 2002. In 2002 I came here and this is the first place I ever had to go out and go shopping somewhere. And I didn't speak anything of Serbian. So I'm looking around and I found the guy over here who sells bananas. He spoke French. I bought eggs from a guy who spoke a little bit of German. So I could, I found somebody who spoke English, everything except Serbian. But it was all right, I got everything I needed, so. But it was, it's so much different. I came here from Italy, and it's so much different because it's, in Italy it's more organized like shops, and here it's very much a live piazza, people talking and people, yelling at each other and everything. And then just discovering what's here, things like cheese. When you have basically two kinds of cheese that I noticed. You have kachkaval and then you have cheese. And we can go down there, maybe there's a row of white cheeses, like 26 white cheeses that look exactly the same to me, one or the other. And there's a big difference, obviously, but for me, I see one, and I still don't know what they are. After 10 years, it doesn't make any difference, I don't know.
Neka od Krisovih prvih sećanja na Bajloni pijacu veoma su živopisna.
Other things I remember, from stopping here, there was a cevapi stand over here that was open from 0 to 25. So we had an extra hour in the day. It was great, I thought. So there's something about Serbia that gives you an extra magic hour to live. Everything you can buy here that you can't find anyplace else. 10 years ago, it was difficult to find things in the shops, and I came here to buy everything. And, I remember stupid things like buying toilet paper called Happy End. It was called Happy End. I thought that was kind of fun. So this was every Saturday morning here in the crowd. Sort of, told me where I was living in a way, because my flat was just up the road. But I had no idea. This is the only place I knew where to come, so I always came here and took care of everything. Spent half the day.
Kris živo pamti bulevar Despota Stefana iz vremena kada se doselio u Beograd i iznajmio stan u ovoj ulici.
When I arrived, it was 29. November, still. And it was a flat on the 9th floor that sounded like it was in the middle of traffic. It was, you could, even with the windows closed, you could hear cars like going through your ears. It was horrible. And you had on the bottom floor there was the restaurant Oro, which, you know, every time you just walk by it, you end up smelling like rosti. But it was interesting. It was close to the center. I remember there were the rallies at the time for the presidential elections that was just happening. I was living there when I heard about the Đinđić assassination, for example. I mean, it was a lot of things going on that I was only beginning to learn about, really. So I think this is the guy. This is where I used to buy my eggs in German, if I remember right. But I think it's somebody new now.
Kao i mnogi Beograđani i stanovnici drugih gradova Evrope, i naš sagovornik veruje da su starinske pijace važan deo svakog grada. Pijace daju poseban šarm gradovima i prava je šteta što polako nestaju. Nada se ipak da će preživeti današnjicu i ostati autentične.
When I was living in France and Italy, when I watched them disappear, a lot of the open markets and green markets disappear, and then it loses everything of the personality of the. It's more than just charm. It's, you know, this is a place where people live and work, and you find fresh things. You know the people who are selling to you. Mostly, you can, you know, mostly trust, you know, what they're selling to you, or you know the guys that you shouldn't trust. But you know, if you lose that, then it's just plastic wrap in the supermarket, and you have no idea what you're eating anyway. In some places it improves a lot. I mean, you know, there's Gradsko Pijac has done a lot of work to maintain it. But I mean, even so, you know, this is exactly as it was 10 years ago. And it doesn't seem to be a need to change, you know. There was, I think the biggest problem that you'll end up with is, you know, losing people who are, you know, maybe not completely with the fiscal, you know, I don't even know what they need for working here, but like they closed down all the stands on Boulevard, like they closed down all of the illegal movies and music on Circus, where I used to go every Saturday. I used to buy tons of that stuff. Actually, no, I never bought it. But, you know, everything in the world was there. And then, you know, it was, of course, illegal, and they, of course, closed it down. But it's something lost when they do that. But here, it's pretty much the same, you know. Food, clothes, everything for the house, yeah, anything you want, basically. You know, I can see it. I mean, it's not so much for me, but I can see it for lots of people. It's very social, you know. And they go from here to the kafana, and they come back, and then, you know, I think it's something to be definitely held on to, you know. Here, Kalenić, Žero Market, all of these great places in Belgrade that you don't have anyplace else. But these are all this is the, for me, I still, no difference for me between this. And people are telling me, no, you got to try this because it's much better than that, and this is salty. And I have no idea. To me, this is the white cheese. Someone chooses a white cheese that's better or worse. I don't know the difference. You know, because what is called kachkaval, for me, there are 800 different kinds of it. But here it's just the one, you know, so you have it.
Kris je na pijaci naučio i neke od prvih reči srpskog jezika i pre nego što je upisao tečaj. Verujemo da je mogao da govori srpski malo više i u našoj emisiji, ali kao i svi perfekcionisti ne voli da radi ništa što nije sasvim usavršio.
Here is where I learned how to, do shopping. So sam koliko koštiti, imati to, imati ta, da. I remember asking, because I came from Italy, I said, so I was looking for mozzarella and I was looking for parmigiano. So I went to some guy and I said, do you have, da li imate to, parmigiani, And he says to me, yes, sure, yes. And he brings me over to show me his watermelons. Nothing to do with cheese at all. I say, okay, good, you've got watermelon. No, mozzarella. Komšija ima komšija. Obviously nothing, so. I learned things like Polako, I think was the first word I learned in Serbian, slow down.
Kris Farmer odveo nas je i u Knez Mihajlovu, koju je zavoleo čim je ugledao. Retki su Beograđani koji nemaju svoju priču o Knez Mihajlovoj, ali je svaka sasvim posebna.
Knez Mihajlova was a huge surprise to me when I first came here, because, everything was a surprise, but when I came here, the first time it was in the late 90s, and I was brought down here with my client to go look at the shopping street. I didn't expect to see something so developed. And it was, you have every shop that you see in Western Europe. It's maybe a little bit less interesting than it used to be, because now you have, everything is pretty much the same. You have big brands are everywhere. It becomes a little bit like walking down the street in Madrid or elsewhere. What's cool is to see all the people on the street. Like the guys selling things and performers. I took last weekend. My son saw some break dancing here, and he was fascinated. They were just sitting there. They were doing it, and they looked like they were having a lot of fun. So. And there's always something going on that's, interesting to look at. Whenever, sort of between, I have a lot of my meetings outside, and usually in between I'm walking here, and seeing, and Belgrade being small, running into people every 5 minutes usually. So it's really, this is the place where you socialize more than anything else. I used to have my office at Farmer and Spajić was down on Topić in Venac, so we come here at lunch and, walk around, have lunch here, go down to, what is the name of that place? Kolarac. I remember that was great for eating brain, although most people don't want to come with me to try it, but
Do you like it?
I love it, yeah, I love it. It seems like it's always the same people, but it's not, it's when you like to I like to watching people, what they're doing, where they're shopping.
Druga priča u i o Knez Mihajlovoj otkriva i zašto Kris retko govori srpski, iako po mom skromnom mišljenju nema razloga za to.
One of the things that I always was doing when I was here was looking for books. You had the English books here and at Plato and down at IPS. And today there are really nothing left. Today it's it's funny, but it's like there's no English books left at all. Well, it's going to force me to learn to read Serbian. There might be other reasons, but I mean, that's it. Pa pričam pomalo srpski. Imam problem da govorim. Ja razumem, na primjer, 80%, ali da pričam, teško mi je. Svi hoće da me govore na engleskom, odmah. Kad počnem, odmah na engleskom. Yes. And even if they speak English horribly, they're still going to speak to me in English because it's better for them. A lot of friends here who are from the States and from England and places who have come here and actually learned very well Serbian. I mean, I'm just not one of those. I speak 4 languages. I can't get my head around Serbian. That's for some reason. And probably after 10 years living here, I speak more than I don't speak nearly enough, but I speak more than I think I do. If that makes any sense. I can order coffee like anybody.
Naš sagovornik je vezan za knez Mihajlovu na različite načine i poslovno. Zamolili smo ga da nam kaže nešto i o njegovom putu od profesora književnosti do stručnjaka za marketing, koji je ujedno bio i put od Pariza preko drugih evropskih metropola do Beograda.
I studied comparative literature at the American University in Paris, and the idea that I had was to go on and teach. I had applied to go to grad school in the UK. I was planning to move there and I was accepted into Oxford for postgrad. And at the time I was living in Paris, moved everything to the UK, arrived there and found out that the professor that was supposed to read my thesis retired. He was sick. He couldn't do it. And Oxford told me you can wait a year and reapply or nothing. So nothing. I went to work and I started getting into more business things, sales mostly, and it's sort of led one thing to the other. That I was doing sales of different, first it was advertising, and then I worked in selling machine parts and machinery, and from there into sportswear. Sportswear brought me to Yugoslavia actually, because one of my main clients here was Elese and Roba de Capa. And then from there, when I actually came to move here, I found that I needed to change again, and there was a need for more communication. I was working as an editor for a couple of newspapers, and from there opened it up into public relations, and it follows a line. It's a little bit hard to follow, but it follows a line somehow. And now I'm sort of going back towards the writing, editing. I'm giving English texts to companies. Instead of getting translations, they will take I'll write them original text in English, so it gives them a little bit more value for what they're doing. And I love to do it. So. Yes.
Kris Farmer već dugo piše i kolumne za Politiku. Tekstovi nailaze nekad na odobravanje, a nekad na neslaganje čitalaca sa napisanim. To se najlakše može vidjeti po komentarima ispod Krisovih tekstova u internet izdanju Politike. Jedno je sigurno, na njegove tekstove teško je ostati ravnodušan.
Politika, sometimes they're very hard on me. I like that. I don't want everybody to agree with me, obviously. Otherwise, why talk? But I've had some texts that have had a lot of negative reaction, because people automatically will say, how can you talk about here? You're not from here. What do you know about us? Go home, basically. On the one side. On the other side, sometimes, one or two texts will point out something that people don't think about. I wrote about stupid things like the highway signs, the lack of highway signs. The phenomenon of Djokovic, was, for me, is a great tennis player. He was, I don't know, he's not still world number one, is he? But when he was still world number one, nothing better.
Yeah.
But I wrote about it saying, okay, we love him as a player, but that doesn't mean necessarily that we have to love Serbia too. He would, and I was talking about that and the symbolic value. And that's got me. I think the guy at Politica told me it was a record number of responses online. So.
And some good responses, I think.
Good ones. Oh, there were some good ones. Yeah, some people agree. Often the people who agree don't want to say so, though. So that's also a problem. I don't want to teach anybody anything.
Yes, of course.
But it's my observation, and I write that also for B92, where I can write a little bit more than anything I want, more or less. And sometimes it does, yeah. Sometimes it's silly. Sometimes it hits a point. The last one I was talking about all the raising taxes and what it does to people, and where's the money going to come from? And it's a question people don't know the answer to. It's a question people sometimes don't even ask themselves.
Prateći Krisovu priču, stigli smo i na Karaburmu, gde živi odnedavno. Opčinjen ovim krajem, ne razume zašto nije popularniji među Beograđanima iz drugih delova grada. Ispričao nam je ponešto o Karaburmi, ali i drugim mestima u našoj prestonici u kojima je živeo.
I've been here for a very short time. I've been here for 3 weeks, and it's nice. There are people before, people tell me about Karaburma, and they say it's, a little bit dangerous, but I find it's a quiet, residential, a lot of, sort of community here. You see people on the streets. I don't know them, obviously, but you see people on the streets who are talking to each other, lots of animals out there, not wild dogs, but, dogs that are owned by people. And on the back here on this side is the OFK Stadium, where is a nice kafana where I go to. You can play tennis. I've lived before here in other part of Palilula, near Svijeva, which is still like the center. It's not far from here. It's maybe 20-minute walk from here, but it's still in the center. Here you're out of the center. Here it's not the country, but it's quiet, and I like that. A lot of stories probably are just things that have built up for years that maybe don't have a lot of basis in, well, maybe they used to have more of a basis in reality than they do now. But I can see probably it won't take very long to get to know this area very well. Up there behind is igrionica for children. There used to be a kladionica. So it has a little bit for everybody there. Before Palilula, I was in New Belgrade. It's completely different. In the block 29, where they basically started building it in 2002, which is about when I arrived. So there were no buildings. There was Wild West. You had packs of wild dogs everywhere, nobody around, nobody walking, everybody in cars. That was before there was Mercator, Arena, Raiffeisen building wasn't there, nothing was there. So this is, coming here is kind of like, it's an old neighborhood, it's a nice neighborhood. Well, you see, the streets are really narrow. And I have my car, so I'm driving down, and it's always you have to go very slowly because there's always this guy is talking to this guy over here, and they're yelling across from windows. And it reminds you a little bit of like old Naples and Italy, when they're just where everybody is in everybody's business all the time. I've seen conversations between windows across the street.
U poslednje vreme Krisa sve više privlači i centar grada, posebno Dorćol. Veruje da bi bilo zanimljivo iskustvo živeti u ovom starom delu grada, gde je uvek živo i zanimljivo i sve je na dohvat ruke.
You know, maybe like I was saying to think about in Belgrade, Dorćol probably. I mean, it's someplace I've never lived also, so it's more alive. It's nice to have, things here is nice, but there are no, this cafe, that one, I think there are two, and you have a couple of shops, but that's it, and if you want to do anything or, get anything done, you really have to leave here, and that's less convenient, obviously.
Kako se proveo Amerikanac u Parizu videli smo u legendarnom istoimenom hollywoodskom filmu. Kris nam je otkrio kako je biti Amerikanac u Beogradu.
Not very much like Gene Kelly's life in Paris. No, but it's. I was afraid of it at first. When I first came here, I thought, that people would be, a little bit more aggressive toward me because it wasn't too long after the bombing. In 2002, it was only 3 years after. And I was afraid of, what the reaction would be. And it was not nearly as bad, not nearly as bad as I thought it was. In fact, it was okay, it was good. I mean, the fact is it doesn't matter that I'm American here as much as that I'm not Serb, So I'm not one of, nisam naš čovek, as they like to say. But I could be from anywhere. Taxi drivers often think I'm from Slovenia because the way I speak Serbian, apparently it sounds like that. So being American in Belgrade is well.
Do you like it?
Yeah. Can't answer that question. Yeah, it's my life.
Yeah.
I'm happy with my life, but like I was saying before, as I've lived, different places, so I'm a foreigner. I mean, like a professional foreigner. I'm always a foreigner, no matter where I go, and I'm okay with that, and it's comfortable. It's easy for me to live like that. I think that there are lots of parts about it that I feel like I understand better now than I used to. Things I like better than I used to. Things I don't like at all anymore. But I mean, it's not really my town. But I'm, for the moment, happy to be here. So I have lived in a lot of places, and so it's hard to say that one is particularly the place for me, or I don't have a place where my ancient ancestors come from, or so I mean it's more or less where I am is home, and it's more about people for me than the place, and that's probably something I'll be stuck with forever, because it's at this point in my life, if I move to someplace new, it'll be new, it'll continue to be new. But that's okay.
Sa Krisom smo stigli i do beogradskog pristaništa, čarobnog mesta koje je otkrio i zavoleo zahvaljujući svojim prijateljima iz jednog poznatog beogradskog jazz kluba.
Pristanište. I discovered it when Ivana moved here, because before that I had never been down here before. There was you saw this other part over here where there's a little cafe, and then moving towards Savamala.
Yes.
I knew that part, but when Iguana opened here is because, as I was saying, I know Iguana and Goran since basically he opened his first restaurant in Požarevačka. I used to go there every day for lunch in a little tiny, I don't know, 25 square meters maybe, maybe a little bit more. There was room enough for about 10 people probably, but we always went there with the company for lunch, and we got to know him, and then he moved then to Beogradska, which I didn't see very much, but then when he came here, he changed everything, and it makes it a nice place to come. Now in the summer I come and I'll sit down there and have a coffee and, just look at the river and listen to jazz if I'm at the right time.
Krisu se veoma dopada što su Beograđani privrženi svojim rekama, gde mnogi provode trenutke predaha, a neki žive na svojim splavovima. Čak i pristanište, iako betonom kao da pravi zid između Save i Beograđana, potvrđuje njegovo uverenje, kaže Kris.
A lot of people complain about they're not developing the river as much as they could, but in big cities like where I've lived in Rome and in Paris, the quays are not as developed here, with the splavovi. You don't see that anyplace else, Yeah. And along the bank of the Tiber River in Rome, if you go there, you're afraid of dying because it's not protected. The river's awful and things like this. Yeah. So I think you can enjoy the rivers here much more than you can in other places. The idea that you could walk, eventually, if you wanted to, I could carry on walking straight to my home from here, basically. I don't know how many hours it would take, but it's nice to be in touch with the water, especially in Belgrade that doesn't have the sea or the ocean or anything near it. So I went for the first time this summer to Ada Sigalja. Yeah. To the beach. I'd never done that before. Uh-huh. It's cool. It's nice. The thing that I find always interesting is that you have bits of development, and then you have bits that are just left. Like this has been the same forever. And, apparently there are plans to develop it. I heard something about a cultural center of some kind, or maybe theater. I have no idea. But it's just it doesn't get developed until. Bit by bit, people will move in, and I think that side of the quay, where you have all the restaurants and that club magazine and all that, it's very well developed. It becomes very chic.
Kris nam je otkrio i šta najviše voli, a šta mu smeta u Beogradu i kod Beograđana.
Belgrade is for me it's an easy place to live. You don't have a lot of pressure all the time. You have there are obviously things that you require a lot more work and that you have to work hard to do, but people don't seem to stress out so much about it. So it means that, you can have your time working, and then you can have your time actually relaxing and enjoying. And people relax and enjoy a lot. I see every cafe is always full, and that's where you meet people and talk. It's a very outdoor kind of Mediterranean atmosphere that I like. On the bad side, it's. When you're trying to do something, it's sometimes difficult because a lot of barriers get put up. There's a lot of expectation that things are not possible to be done here. Your first response, basically, to any question that you might ask is no, or it's impossible, or we can't, or we've never done it, and that's not fighting. That's fighting an attitude more than an actual reality, because obviously anything can be done. Maybe it wouldn't be, maybe it'd be something new. But I think that that sort of negative side to it makes it difficult to get some to open new initiatives and maybe think a little bit outside the box.
Yeah.
Or maybe the box is just smaller.
Kris Farmer nije tipičan Beograđanin, niti tipičan stanovnik bilo kog grada. Ne zato što je došao sa drugog kontinenta, već zbog njegovog osjećanja da je stranac gde god da ode, čak i u rodnoj Americi, jer je odavno otišao. Kako kaže, to osjećanje mu prija i deo je njegovog identiteta, dok su se njegovi roditelji i sestra odavno vratili u Ameriku. Međutim, ako već nijedan grad ne može da doživi kao svoj dom, možemo reći da je Beograđanin, s obzirom da u kontinuitetu nigde nije živeo duže, a ni sam nije siguran koliko će dugo trajati čarolija koja ga je ovde zadržala. Možda ipak Beograd postane njegov dom. Ko zna?
Well, from my point of view, it's a difficult question because I don't really have a place that's home, you know, in the sense that I moved around a lot when I was young, before we left America, and then I was in Saudi Arabia, in Italy, in France, UK, Germany, back to Italy before coming here. And so I've been a little bit here, a little bit there. My parents live in a town that I've never seen, for example. You know, I don't have a place that's home. I lived here since 10 years, yes. And before that, the most I'd lived any place was 5. 5 in Paris, 5 in Rome one time, 5 in Rome another time. In London, it was only 3 years. No, 2.5 years. Germany, 5 years. Which is, if you start adding up the numbers, a lot of years, so let's not do that. Like I said, it's easy to live here. I don't think it's home. You know, it's not forever. It's probably, maybe, I may not even be for very much longer. I have no idea. But, you know, after 10 years, I start asking myself the same question. You know, so where do I want to be in the next 10 years? And, you know, there's a lot about Belgrade that's good, but, I mean, it's just probably not going to be for the next 10 years.
Okay.
Who knows? Yeah, it's, on the one side you make these decisions, and on the other, I could be here having the same conversation with you, you know, in 2022. To je to.
Dobro krenuli, dobar dan. Danas u gostima Iskra Brajević, glumica. Dobrodošla.
Hvala.
Naravno, moram da kažem da si ćerka moje školske drugarice. Da se znamo.
To je neobična najava, pošto glavno kaže ćerka Voja Brajevića kao prvo se rekla.
Meni je Ljilja pre svega drugarica, pa mi je onda Voja drugar preko nje. Jel ti smeta kad te pominju kao ćerku Voja Brajevića?
Pa ne smeta. Mislim, on mi otac, ne beži